Checking. 1, 2. One, two. Let's try something. What the heck is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. Anyway. All right. Chords. Pull up the chat. Where'd it go? Flat 5. All right, have some fun tunes. Oh, I'm like, where is that coming from? It was the stream on my phone still playing, and I didn't turn the volume off. But I need to see this just to make sure that it didn't die, which happens. And there's a delay. But anyway, that was 747. I'm kind of playing. That's a cool intro song. I think it's a cool intro song because it's instrumental and it's kind of funky and groovy and jazzy. So it's lately I've been using that to kind of intro, chill out music. Actually, that's a funny story with that song because that people really dig that, and I don't know if I mentioned this last week. I don't know if I did. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. It was Wheaties, with some raisins. Anyway, so that song 747 off the first album, it basically, I was just fooling around with tracks in Logic, which is like a Mac, it's like a Mac version of kind of like Pro Tools, but it's it's really good for songwriting. I use it a lot for songwriting because you can have drum samples and things like that. So I was just like, just for a goof, I always played with them, but I never did a song with it. So I was dating this girl, and I got off the phone with her, and she was going to come over in like 2 hours. I'm like, 2 hours? That gives me just enough time to kind of forward this Logic thing and sample. So I threw down like the bass line. I threw down, maybe it was just drums and bass, and maybe I threw in the keyboard part, just looping around. But I was like, well, that's a cool groove. Threw on the guitar amp, threw a mic in front of it, and just jammed through it. Just to get, I just wanted to throw some ideas for fun. But actually it sounded pretty good. And then later on, I tried to actually write a solo to make it like, know how Satriani has these cool melodies and it's like a real song. And I just didn't come up with anything that I really dug. And then I went back to the very first take when I'm like, that sounds cool. Let me just put some guitar over for the heck of it. That's what you hear on the record. Just the first jam take, and maybe because it was like I never heard it before, I was just jamming on it, and it came, it was kind of, it just had a cool vibe, and I just kept on. That happens a lot. There's a few things on different records where it's like that's the first take. I tried this, I tried that, and I tried 50 different things, and it's like that first take is the best one. Because you're just kind of just feeling it, and you're not thinking this has got to be the one. It's just like I'm just feeling out the track. And sometimes you just cut and paste different ideas. I forget who. There's a lot of guitar players that do stuff like that. I think who was it? It was somebody major. I don't know, like a David Gilmour or somebody was saying that sometimes he'll take 2 and 3 versions. They'll do several passes at a guitar solo, and then they'll like take the first piece of this one and the second piece of that one, and then he's got to relearn the solo the way they cut it up and took the best pieces of each. So, but it's a fun way to kind of. Then you have something that's semi-improvised, but at the same time it composed later. You kind of taking it and listening back. It's a good way to write stuff. I like to use Pro Tools and Logic as like a scratch board, just like a writer would use Word. I'll throw down the idea and then listen back and kind of tweak the melody a little bit. One thing I've been doing a lot of lately was just kind of listening as I'm thinking about, I'm like always coming up with or thinking of ideas to write on a next recording, next album, whatever. I stockpile the stuff. I have like over 100 little mini recordings of ideas in iTunes. And then what I've been doing is picking up just really good songs, or really well-written songs, and just tearing them apart as far as what's the chord, what's the voice leading, what's the melodies. And it's like, wow, I was listening to Save a Prayer by Duran Duran yesterday, and I was like, wow, he did it's just really nice movement. Wow, just a really well-constructed song. And as I'm listening to the melody, he's doing the same types of things that you hear the Beatles or Elton John do. Very melodic, but the way he does the chord change, and then he does this one thing where he goes to... is it a minor chord? But he sings the sixth, which is the note that is the root note of the neck. He sings a G, but he's on a B flat major chord, I think. So he's singing the sixth so it creates a little bit of a color and a little bit of a sad thing. It's not quite right. If you just sang a major third or a root, it would sound more poppy, more, but it says a bit bittersweet, sad quality to it. But that's the note so it creates a little bit of tension, but a sixth isn't really super tension. And the next chord is a G. And I was like, wow, it's just that one note makes it just a little bit more interesting than just a straight pop melody. And that's why that song has this a little bittersweet thing going on. It's little things like that help as a songwriter when you understand your intervals. It's really not rocket science. It's not rocket surgery. But most people don't do that. There's everything you need to know about writing a good song is in, the records that you got. Pull out your favorite record, Beatles, Elton John, Billy Joel, or whatever, AC/DC, and you'll notice they're doing a lot of the similar things, and they're also doing different things. But I see things that Elton John does that I also see AC/DC do. Like, sometimes in AC/DC he'll do the bass line will go from D to C, but then the bass will go up and not play the C. He'll play the other note in the chord, for those who are, which is an inversion, or what they call an inverted chord. It's not super advanced. Anybody who's a decent songwriter should know that you could invert the bass. The terms sound more complicated than they are. It's basically taking, you got most common pop chords. They're, major or minor, and there's 3 notes in it. But you don't have to play the bass on the, root of the chord. You could play the bass on here, and it creates a different feel. And it also helps sometimes flow, because that movement from the bass one to the other note is maybe a half-step movement, so it kind of creates a nice drop. This isn't a guitar lesson or anything like that, but it's knowing some basic theory, and then pulling apart your songs. What's the chord progression, and then what the melody is. The melody by itself doesn't tell you that much unless it's the context of a chord, because of a G. A G makes a big difference if it's over an E minor chord or if it's over an F major chord. It's a different. You don't have to study, years of Juilliard or whatever. But you should know chords and inversions and scales and basic stuff, which you can learn in a couple of months of lessons. But pull out your favorite tunes and just analyze. What I tell people who are either songwriters or producers: pull out your favorite things and analyze like one thing. So, like, I see a lot of people that have just poor song when they're writing songs. It's poor song structure. It'll go from here to here to here to here, and that works for like Tool. But they know how to write a structured song, and then said, hey, we're going to take it and go out and go 15 minutes into 10 other directions, and that's kind of their thing. It's supposed to be like a little DMT trip or something in their songs, and that's cool if you're looking for that. But if you're looking to write a song that's that you're going to just play in front of an audience and they're going to dig that tune and sing along, which is what 99% of songwriters are trying to do. And if you're going to do something that is different, like Tool, you better be as good as Tool. They're that good where they can do that and keep it interesting. Most people can't. There's some prog acts that do some really interesting, your Dream Theaters and stuff, but even then they have choruses and song structure. But my point was, though, if you want to figure out the stuff that you love, and if you're a producer, listen to the mix. Listen to your top 10 songs or whatever for a week or two, and just listen to the mix. Just listen to the mix. Just listen to the mix. Where's the drums fit in cadence with the bass? How many instruments are the best instruments pan left and right or whatever? And you'll start hearing things when that's like, holy cow! I remember one time after Ronan taught me, told me to do something like that. So I just took Dark Side of the Moon and listened to it with headphones on, and I heard things I never heard before because I wasn't paying attention around the arrangements. Because it was one of the mixes I mentioned to Ronan was Dark Side of the Moon, and he's like, those arrangements are very sparse, meaning there's not a lot of instruments, there's not tons of and I was like, but why do they sound so full? And the ironic answer that he says is because those arrangements are very sparse, and that's. People don't, a lot of new or even intermediate arrangers, right, songwriter, don't get that. They think the more stuff I put into it, the bigger it's going to sound, but actually it's counterintuitive. Everything starts fighting each other, and your mix starts getting smaller and cluttered and mush, and nothing really stands out. The best mixes really sounds are really where you have each element is really important to the mix. The bass, the drums, whatever. Some of the coolest sections in a lot of these songs is where it pairs down to like just drums and a vocal and maybe another instrument, and then there's sections where Danzig songs, where it's just. I remember the first Danzig song I ever heard. I forget which one it was. It was off the first album because this is when he was new, because he's from Lodi, and the Misfits I think were from like that area, Hasbrook Heights or Hackensack or whatever. So I was in a music store in the next town over from Lodi, and the first Danzig album was being played through. I'm like, who is this? He's like, Danzig. I'm like, dancing? That's a weird name. He's like, no, Danzig. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, oh yeah, it's the guy from the Misfits, and this is his solo album, his first album. And I'm like, this is pretty cool, as I really dug that. It was really sparse. It was just like the drums, and like a little guitar riff and a lot of space. A lot of the guitars would cut out and it'd be just drums. I think it might. I think it was She Rides or something like that. One of those songs. But it was really, the cool thing about it was when it drops out, the ear can only concentrate on so many things at a time. And it's if you have a cool drum beat and a vocal, that could be really cool. And then you bring the other thing in slightly. But I've heard albums from that have so many, and producers tell me that that I know that are like well-known producers. They're like, oh yeah, we got things with 120 tracks. I'm like, what of what? What? I mean, I can understand that if you're doing a drum kit, you might have you may have percussion and maybe a stereo percussion too, and sometimes you layer vocals. I couldn't. If you asked me to get to 100 tracks, I couldn't. I'd be thinking of stuff to put in, and maybe that's why the stuff sounds so sanitized, because they're putting 100 vocals on. Well, then the vocal has no character anymore. It's just layered, which is fine. It works for Bohemian Rhapsody and works on the Cars record. So sometimes you want that, but at the end of the day, you do it for a reason if you want to get that sound. But 100 tracks, I don't know. I mean, the best records, Dark Side of the Moon, Back in Black, these things they're 40 years later, 50 years later, are still outselling new number one hit records. What does that tell you? It's not just baby boomers and people from the 70s and 80s like just replenishing their existing. It's their kids picked up on it and really kids today are still listening to Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and rock stuff. And you see that. You see things like the School of Rock, and it's really great to see these kids that are 12, 13, 14, and they're playing. I was a friend of mine owns. I know people who own a couple of different School of Rocks, and I played the Simon Cowell. They had auditions, and they wanted someone from outside the school to come in to give them, the feedback, and just to say, who I thought, because they might have felt, they want something unbiased from outside the school. So at the School of Rock, I came in and to kind of help and win the audition. So it was really interesting to me to see these different kids. And by far, they were the most popular thing that they were playing was Led Zeppelin. I mean, like every kid is either the Beatles or Zeppelin they were playing. You have a girl that's like 13, 14, and she's playing like, whatever, Heartbreaker or whatever, really well. Like good enough to do a live show. So it's really cool to see these kids. And obviously, if you're on Instagram or whatever, you see all these kids. I mean, I saw this one girl. She's, I don't know, 12, and she's playing the crap out of the drums, like really well. And I forget her name, but she's just really getting into it. Fun to, like, I was just enjoying watching this kid play because she was just having so much fun, and she actually played quite well. And I've taught I've taught singing, I've taught guitar, and I've been in music schools and stuff. So I'm scrutinizing, even if I've seen some kids that on some of these shows, America's Got Talent, and they got some kid, and they're like, ooh, and I'm like, dude, that kid can barely play, but he looks cool, and they think it's cool that he's young. So sometimes it's a hype, but sometimes these kids are really like legit. It's like, damn, how did the kid? I mean, I was good when I was young. I was playing Eruption and stuff at maybe 15, 14. I played my high school talent show, and I know it was before I could drive, because someone had to pick me up. But I played Eruption, which I have it on video. I think I have it on VHS somewhere, but it's so old it probably doesn't even play anymore. But that would be interesting if I could find that. I'll try to transfer it to digital and move it to YouTube, because that would just be fun to show people. This is But I was actually pretty good. I was arguably one of the better guitar players in my area of my age. One of the better ones in town, or one of the ones at my school for that age. But that doesn't mean too much. You're the best 16-year-old guitar player. Although when I grew up, at that time, it was quite competitive. That area of the Lodi type of area, everybody played guitar, or drums or bass, and everybody was in a band. There was garage bands. You could just drive through town on a night, and there would be somebody playing a garage here, and then a couple miles down, some other garage band there. So it was quite competitive, and a lot of those people are still in bands today, in local bands that are playing out 3-4 nights a week from that area. Don Manzo was my teacher, taught a lot of people from that area. So, some legit, these people, I'm still on Facebook, and it's cool to see that they're still playing, years later. I forget my point. I don't remember my point. But it's cool to see these kids doing it, I've thought about kind of getting back into, depending on the way the economy goes and everything, maybe getting back into teaching again, because it's cool to see that, and if for no other reason, it's just make sure there's a new generation that gets it, and they understand that it's not about looping, and sampling, and that's great if you want to do that, but I don't get it. I mean, that's, maybe it's like, when the Beatles came out, parents were like, that's not real music. Sinatra's real music. Dean Martin's real music, and then once, whatever, the next thing came out, when heavy metal is out, the parents were like, the Beatles are real music. That's not real music. That's devil music, and when Ray Charles came out, people were like, that's devil music, so, because they wanted, that I should be playing gospel or whatever. So maybe I'm that generation who just doesn't get the new generation. But I dig hip hop. I'll listen to MF Doom, and I kind of dig the interesting uses of phrasing, and I dig Tupac and Biggie and Tribe Called Quest. But mumble rap, I think, even the legendary rappers that are still around listen to mumble rap, and they don't like it either. It's like, what is that? And maybe I'm being ignorant. I don't know. It's like, what are you doing? I don't, look, if you have a beat and it has some kind of beat to it, and you push it out to the kids enough, yeah, they're going to be at a party and be like, oh, this is my jam. But that doesn't mean it's good. It just means, you take anything with a hook and a beat and you market the shit out of it, it's gonna sell, for a while. It's gonna get, I don't know if it's, but is that stuff gonna be around, in 20 or 30 years? I don't know. I mean, they said the Beatles were a fad too, and they seem to be doing all right. So what the heck do I know? But I know just the stuff. I like to write tunes with melodies and stuff. But that's kind of what I've been working on lately. Is just kind of filling up the bank of ideas. I've been listening to Elton John, Duran Duran, very melodic things, and trying to figure out, and seeing there's certain common things. I never listened to Elton John much because there's not many guitars in it. He's a piano player, but piano players, Billy Joel, Elton John, guys like that, write very melodically because the melodies are all in front of you. It's much easier to see how the notes, intertwined together than it is on a guitar. So piano players tend to write in a very melodic way because it just, and even write chord progressions that it makes sense because your fingers between this voice lead and they'll do a different inversion. So it all makes sense musically. And on guitar, I'm like, oh, okay, he's taking this chord and it's weaving into this chord, which has common tones, and the melody's hitting the suspended and resolved. Nothing rocket science. It's just like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. And then coming up with interesting phrasing and stuff to make it actually a vocal that's singable and interesting, So I'm just kind of come up with some melodic concepts. And that seems to be the hardest thing for a lot of songwriters, to come up with just melodies, And if you don't know chords, it's kind of hard. If you don't know, scales, even though, I know Jason Blum isn't, he knows basic theory. He's a famous songwriter. He's written, I've met him many times, and we're friends on Facebook. Cool guy. He adopts kittens, and the kitten, he was always posting these kitten videos that are just adorable, and he narrates them. Check it out if you get a chance. But anyway, he's written books, and he's literally sold millions of records for the songs that he's written for other people, including Britney Spears, catchy hit tunes. But he is not a big theory guy. He's not a big instrumentalist. He just comes up with cool melodies, and you can do that. But he also can play guitar. He's just not he wouldn't play guitar in a band, but he could play the chords to a song. He could sing a little bit. So he's, even at that, if you're going to write, helps to know instruments so you can know how to write a melody. The things that I see is they come up with uninteresting melodies and then song structure. And it's weird that newbie songwriters don't understand song structure because they've been hearing it their whole lives. Every song that you like, it's like, when I try to teach people, I've taught like little songwriting lessons for people. They play me some of their songs. I'd be like, I'd say, okay, name me some of your favorite songs of all time, or your favorite artists. And I'd just bring it up on YouTube. And I'm like, listen, song structure. Listen to how they're going from a verse to a chorus, a pre-chorus, whatever, a bridge. And it's going somewhere. And it's like, whereas your song is just kind of meandering. You're not telling a story. When somebody tries to tell a story, but they never get to the point? Well, maybe I'm doing that right now. I don't know. But, and then people, it's like, oh, get to the point already. Like, what's the point, or somebody, you don't want to have a joke where they're explaining it for 10 minutes and they never get to the punchline. Same thing. If you're singing a verse, like, then tell me the chorus, and the verse should lead to a chorus that means something, the verse could be like, you broke my heart. And then the chorus could be like, but I still love you. That's the story, right? Or it could be, you broke my heart, but I'm now moved on, so screw you. Or it could be, you broke my heart, and I'm still, hurting, or whatever. You're telling the stories at the end of the day, some kind of story. So the lyrics are gonna do that, of course, but then the song structure's got to do that. So you got to have a verse that's setting up your story. Just like a movie, you got your verse that's gonna it's going to be like the beginning of the movie where you're establishing the characters, right? You're introducing the characters. This is person, this is the protagonist, and he's whatever, and then you have it's a love story, which most songs are about some kind of love story. It doesn't have to be. It could be about war. It could be about anything, but any interesting story, you're introducing your characters in the verse, and then the chorus is kind of like, what's the big conflict that happens in the story? Is it there's love lost, or is it they're struggling through something, or they're struggling to deal with something that happened or is gonna happen, or what's your story? And even if you forget about the words, the song structure. If someone came in from another, that didn't speak English or whatever, and heard it, they should be able to kind of understand the flow of the story. Like, oh, here. This is, there's something happening here, but then this thing happened, and now, oh, there's a dramatic thing. I don't know what's that. They might not understand, this. And people go to opera, they don't understand the language at all, but then they're crying because they could see the characters, and there's a conflict, and there's a love thing, and then they're fighting, and then they're happy, and then somebody died, whatever. You don't have to understand the language. So your music, your song structure should somehow tell the story as well. Well, sometimes they do an artistic thing where they have a sad lyric and a pop vocal or something, or vice versa, which is an interesting thing, like Third Eye Blind, that song, doot, 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 doot. That song is about like drug addiction. It's kind of, if you listen to it, it's a sad song lyric, but it's a super happy tune. So, I don't know, you could artistically, is that a choice to try to be ironic, or is he actually saying, what are you going to do? These bad things happen, and we're going to still go on with life. I don't know. But it's but regardless, the song structure has a verse and a chorus, and the chorus, is the point of the story, kind of. But I don't know. So, I don't know if anybody has any questions. That will be on the test. I'm going to keep this short this week unless anybody pops in. But one thing I wanted to note that was interesting, each week I'm always looking into different musical things. And one thing I found that was cool is that the Sex Pistols did I've been listening to this a bunch of times this week. There's a couple of concerts when the Sex Pistols did a reunion in 2007. And there's one at the Isle of Wight, and there's another one where they're why is it not showing up? That's interesting. Because why does it show the other thing? Huh. I don't know why it's not showing it's showing Duran Duran, but I have the Sex Pistols. So maybe I have to read. Oh, that's weird. That is weird. I don't understand that. What the heck? OBS. I'm trying to. And why is it? Wait, where am I? Hello. You can't even see me because I don't even have the camera on. There. Here I am in the corner. I'm having fun. Now, for some reason, here, I have... That's weird. Okay. So, for some reason, I don't think you really need to see it, but it would be nice. Why doesn't it show you YouTube? Oh, wait, Google. Here it is. Bang. Found it. Anyway, so the Sex Pistols did a reunion in 2006, 2007. Now, you know, Sex Pistols, I kind of have a rap of they couldn't play, they were bad musicians, it was more hype about punk, and punk musicians can't play. And if you listen to live recordings from the 70s, yeah, I mean, Sid Vicious could barely play the bass, and they're sloppy, and, you know, but the songs were good. If you listen to the, you know, what do you call it? The Bullocks record, whatever. What's it called? It's a good. The songs are great. The songs are well written, and Johnny Lydon always had a really interesting voice. And check out, but when they're live, it's like they learn to play. I mean, I think it's a couple of the original members, and also obviously it's not Sid Vicious on bass. It's a session bass player, but they're tight. Like, check this out. I can only play little clips because Facebook will send me a nasty email. Now, this guy's in his 50s, and, I mean, he's singing with more intensity than any Maroon 5 or pop artist out today. It's sanitized compared to the way, you know. He still got it. And his voice is spot on. I mean, his pitch is right on, and the attitude is there. The band is tight. The songs are still, you know, great songs. And if you see interviews with him, he's he's just funny to because he just don't give a shit. He's like the honey badger. He just, you know, he says what he wants. He doesn't care about the fame or being a rock star. He just doesn't care. He just wants to do his thing, and, you know, he obviously loves what he's doing. But listen to the intensity. Let me see if I can get the volume up a little bit. Because for some reason, where the heck is the loopback software? Crazy. I got too many windows and I need more. Where's the loopback? I should be able to... Well, you know what? I could turn it louder from OBS, I think. A little bit. Anyway, let me play a little bit of it. Why is that? Wait a minute, hold on. I don't think you're even getting the audio. Because the meter's not going. What the fuck? Where's loopback? I had it open on the side here. Computers. You fuckhead. I gotta go find loopback now. So I could get the thing open. Where... Oh, yeah.
Your time has come, your second skin. The cost so high, the gain so low.